My name is Whitney Davis. I'm from Houston, Texas, and I own 2 guns. The main reason I did buy my gun is for home defense. Police are great if there is any kind of robbery or break-in, but again, that it's kind of reactionary, and when you're in the moment, you have to defend yourself. So I feel a lot more safer having my guns plural now. I've always wanted a gun with the pandemic and just kind of the Black Lives Matter protests that's been going on, kind of lit a fire underneath me to get it sooner.
My name is Michael Cargill, owner of Central Texas Gun Works. Ever since March, we've had a dramatic increase of people coming to the gun store. I would say it's tripled wanting to purchase a firearm. They're coming in with their family, husband and wives, boyfriends and girlfriends, coming in to purchase a gun and also get the training. A lot of business started shutting down because of COVID. And so people were afraid that someone was going to possibly break into their home and start maybe take their stuff because they were lacking in supplies and toilet paper or whatever it was. In June, we started protesting. There were riots and things of that nature. And people were concerned with people breaking into their home or breaking into their vehicle or attacking them while they're in their vehicles. They're traveling about the country. So people wanted to take their own personal protection in their own hands. And now we're faced with the possibility of people thinking of defunding the police. And that has people concerned as well. So they're thinking, okay, we're going to have to take our personal safety in our own hands. People that have never purchased a gun before, never thought about a gun, people that have been anti-gun will walk into the gun store, buying a gun, getting the training, and starting to carry the firearm.
And I do realize in this country, a long time ago, Black people weren't even allowed to own guns. So just like people promote our ancestors died for us to vote, they also died for us to be able to carry guns as well. So I want to fulfill what my ancestors weren't able to do in the past.
I think the Black communities educate themselves. They're educating themselves on the history of gun control. They're understanding that gun control first started in the 1800s. In the 1800s, they came out and they said, okay, we're going to make sure free slaves could not have access to guns. And then they started regulating handguns. That's where gun control started. It started with the Jim Crow laws. And so people are realizing this, okay, every time there's a gun law, that's targeting a certain group of people, usually the African-American people. So they're saying, okay, every time someone wants to restrict a gun or tell me I can't have something, that's usually targeting the Black community. And so a light has gone off, and with everything going on, we said, okay, well, we got to make sure that we're legal with this firearm. We got to make sure we know what the law is. We want to make sure we know where we can take it, where we can't take it, and we want to make sure that we understand the use of force and deadly force, the Castle Doctrine, and also the stand your ground laws.
I'm a firm believer guns don't kill people, people kill people. And, even in London or Great Britain, they don't have guns, but, they have stabbing. So if it's not going to be guns, it's going to be something else.
I feel the country is definitely a lot more safer with people having more guns. My mantra is more guns equals less crime. And so I do believe that the more people purchase firearms, the more people get the training, I think that's going to make us for a safer society.
If everybody knows that everybody has a gun, then maybe you're less likely to attack people or to hurt people. Because, if you got a gun, I got one too. So it's an equal playing field. Honestly, that's how I feel.
I want to educate everyone so everyone knows what the laws are. And so when they do see that Black male walking down the street carrying a gun, they're not surprised. Me, today, I walk into a bank, I have a face mask on, and I'm openly carrying a handgun. And I want that to look normal, to see a Black guy walk into a bank with a face mask carrying a gun.
Black World TV, the new black media. Family, today's broadcast is about gun sales that spike among native-born African Americans. Our ancestors died for us to vote. They also died for us to be able to carry guns. Hence, the Second Amendment of the Constitution. When Americans panic, they buy guns, lots of them. During the first 6 months of 2020, amid a global coronavirus pandemic, gun retailers have reported a record 10.3 million firearm transactions, according to a new survey by the National Shooting Sports Foundation. Overall, gun sales in the U.S. have increased by 95%, while ammunition sales have increased 139% compared to the same period last year. And while various demographic groups are buying guns in 2020, native born African Americans account for the highest increase in gun purchases of any group. Quote, the highest overall firearm sales increase comes from black men and women, who show a 58.2% increase in purchases during the first 6 months of 2020 versus the same period last year, Jim Carucato, NSSF Director of Research and Market Development, wrote in his report. Bottom line is that there has never been a sustained surge in firearm sales quite like we are in the midst of. In many states, estimated gun sales doubled in March compared with February. In Utah, they nearly tripled, and in Michigan, a coronavirus hotspot, sales more than tripled. Yet, it's not the first time gun sales have surged following an event with national implications. In 2020, more than 3 million were purchased in the months after the Sandy Hook Elementary School massacre, in which a gunman, a white male, killed 26 people, including 20 children, in Newton, Connecticut. If I'm not mistaken, he was a suspected white supremacist. After this tragedy, Americans feared stricter gun laws, so they bought more guns. In the 8 years under President Barack Obama, traitor, the gun industry grew 158%, according to the NSSF, over fears of impending gun control. While much of the spike in sales early on can be attributed to uncertainty surrounding business shutdowns and initial stay-at-home orders because of COVID-19 precautions, more recent sales may be due to an uneasiness around Black Lives Matter rallies and increased calls to defund police departments. That's right. We're talking about policing your own communities, as the police in Chicago have shown over time, and I digress for a minute, as the Chicago police have shown time and time again, not only are they incompetent and they can't do their jobs, it seems like they're not doing their jobs. It seems like the officials in Chicago can't get it together because it doesn't seem like they've matured enough to put in security cameras, and if they do have them, they never use them. I don't understand what the issue is, other than this being a plan to allow it to happen, but I digress. Michael Cargill, the black man shown, a black man and owner of Central Texas Gun Works in Austin, Texas, says that amid all the anxiety over the pandemic and rallies, people are buying guns to take personal responsibility for their safety. God bless native-born black Americans. You're finally waking up. Quote, people were concerned with people breaking into their home or breaking into their vehicle or attacking them while they're in their vehicles after COVID-19, he said in a video interview. So people wanted to take their own protection into their own hands, which is true and correct. In the past few months, Cargill says he's seen triple the amount of people coming into his store wanting to purchase firearms, and he's noticed a surge in black customers in particular. Cargill believes black people are buying more guns because they are getting more educated on the history of gun control. They're understanding that gun control first started in the 1800s, so people are realizing that every time there's a gun law that's targeting a certain group of people, it's usually native-born African Americans, he said. So they're saying history shows that gun control laws have always been unfavorable to black Americans. Even before America was a country, black people were banned from owning guns. Can you believe that? That black people, during those times, we weren't smart enough to realize that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If they can own guns, why shouldn't we? And that's how we should have always been feeling. Black first. Quote, the first gun control law in the territory that is now the United States was passed in Virginia in 1640, journalist Daniel Rivero noted in a 2016 Splinter article. Quote, it explicitly banned black people from owning guns, even if they were not slaves, unquote. Well, we never really were slaves. You just turned us into them. That's all. We were God's children. We always have been. Again, you just turned us into slaves. That's a big difference. So when these authors of these articles write from a European perspective, I can understand why they would word it that way, but we're rejecting that. But I digress. More than 200 years later, in 1857, the prospect of armed black people became a crucial factor in the Dred Scott case, as Scott attempted to become an American citizen with all its inalienable rights that include owning a gun. The court ruled that, quote, a Negro whose ancestors were imported into this country and sold as slaves were not intended to be included in the general words used in the Constitution, unquote. Well, following the Civil War, when black people attempted to arm themselves against white non-supremacists, southern state governments passed so-called black codes, barring them from owning guns. You see, in a white supremacist society, they use the law against us, which is totally against the law. Whose law? God's law, that's who. But I digress. Throughout the 1960s, the Black Panthers chose to open carry in California as a sign to police that they would no longer endure racial attacks. In 1967, 30 Black Panthers protested on the steps of the California State House armed with shotguns and pistols. They announced that, quote, the time has come for black people to arm themselves, unquote. The move frightened politicians, and it wasn't long before then Governor Ronald Reagan signed a state ban on open carry into law called the Mulford Act. You see, once again, in a white supremacist nation, what they do is they use the law, which is against the law, they use it against native-born African Americans. Whitney Davis of Houston admits that learning more about black history is the reason why she recently purchased 2 guns, as you heard her say in the video. It goes on to say that despite the increase in black gun ownership and general knowledge about black history, many black people have still lost their lives over owning a gun. In 2016, legal gun owner Philando Castile, let's say his name again, Philando Castile, one more time, Philando Castile was shot after informing a Minnesota police officer that he was armed. 2 years prior, Tamir Rice was killed by Cleveland police while holding a toy gun. John Crawford suffered the same fate in a Beaver Creek, Ohio Walmart. On July 25th, Garrett Foster, a white man, attended a Black Lives Matter protest in Austin, Texas, carrying a semi-automatic rifle. After a confrontation with a motorist, Foster was shot dead on July 25th. The move for African Americans to own guns appears to be a break from the progressive movement in American politics which people of color generally align with. Maj Toure, founder of Black Guns Matter, a nonprofit that educates black people in urban communities on their Second Amendment rights through firearms training and education, believes the more black people who have guns, the better race relations will be in America. If anyone has the right mindset with a gun, that solves race issues, Toure told news reporters in a phone interview. Quote, an armed society is a polite society, unquote. Toure advocates for black gun ownership as a tool for self-defense and pushes gun safety, but he acknowledges the fact that fear makes people buy things. Toure welcomes this. Quote, I love that so many black people are buying guns. Man, unquote, he said. Man, you gotta thumbs up this video right on that point alone. I'm gonna repeat it again. Quote, I love that so many black people are buying guns, he said. If you're racist and you think that one group is inferior to another, then you should be afraid, unquote. I hope you take the moment to subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that share button, and we'll see you in the next broadcast. This is Black World TV, again bringing you another broadcast to you, my favorite. We're out.